Welcome back to Alpha Recap, your quick wrap of the market day from stockalpha.ai. We recorded this after the close, so we're talking about what happened today. As always, if you have questions, you can reach us at stockalpha.ai.
Great to be here. Today felt like a tech-led session, with a few storylines tugging at different corners of the market.
Let's start with the top line. The S&P 500 closed up about 0.1%. The Nasdaq was stronger, up around 0.8%. And small caps, the Russell 2000, finished up roughly 0.75%. Those numbers set the tone.
Right. In plain terms, the headline was modest broad market gains, but tech and AI-sensitive names were doing the heavy lifting. It wasn't a universal rally. It was concentrated.
So, what really stands out here is QQQ outperforming while the S&P barely moved. Kate, why did the Nasdaq outpace the rest?
A few things. Momentum in large-cap tech, especially companies tied to AI infrastructure and semiconductors, pushed the index higher. Micron came up repeatedly in coverage as a beneficiary of AI demand, and that helped chip peers too. Analysts noted this looked like concentrated momentum rather than broad-based risk appetite.
So, concentrated gains, meaning a handful of big names powered the rally, not the whole market?
Exactly. If breadth followed, more stocks across sectors participating, that could signal a more durable leg higher. But when only mega-cap tech leads, it raises the risk that the headline indices are masking narrow participation.
Hold on, say that again. Why does breadth matter so much here?
Breadth is simply how many stocks are moving up versus down. If only a few large companies are responsible for the gains, then the market can be fragile. But if lots of names join in, the rally tends to be healthier and more sustainable.
Yeah, that tracks.
And small caps held up, which was encouraging. The Russell 2000's 0.75% gain meant domestically focused names weren't entirely left behind. That suggested some appetite for risk tucked into the session.
Quick reaction. Nice to see small caps participate.
But participation was uneven. Real estate M&A activity boosted certain REITs. Industrials saw pockets of strength tied to deal flow, and some consumer names got tactical support. Still, breadth remains the key question.
Let's dig into sectors. Tech and semiconductors led. Tell us what was moving there.
Chipmakers and AI infrastructure suppliers outperformed after fresh company commentary and updates reinforced demand for AI compute. Micron was frequently cited as an outperformer. When memory demand from AI ramps, it tends to lift the whole supply chain, at least for sessions like today.
Right, and I heard real estate had a notable day too?
Yes, there were several M&A and portfolio transaction announcements that created buying interest in selected REITs and property names. M&A can re-rate parts of the sector in the short term, even if longer-term rate and supply dynamics still matter.
Noted.
Financials were mixed. Bank coverage and stress test chatter provided support broadly, but regional and specialty banks stayed sensitive to idiosyncratic headlines. Energy, materials, industrials all had pockets of moves driven by company-specific news rather than a unified sector bid.
Okay, interesting.
And consumer and retail were patchy. We saw interest in omni-channel winners and AI-enhanced retail offerings, but consumer spending data remains a watch point for that group.
Let's talk headlines that created volatility. There were some large share sales and crypto weakness, right?
Yes. Reports surfaced that entities linked to Paul C. Hilal sold about $2.5 billion in holdings. That's a big, concentrated block. Such sales can weigh on connected names and inject headline volatility. Separately, Bitcoin dropped notably, and that rippled through crypto-exposed equities and miners. Not a great day for crypto-linked stocks.
Wow, large share sales and crypto. Double headline pressure.
Exactly. We also saw some reported sales tied to other large holders in names like Intel and General Dynamics, which can depress individual stocks even if the underlying business hasn't changed materially.
So, what do traders and portfolio managers take away from that mix?
Analysts noted that, in the absence of a big macro surprise, idiosyncratic headlines, M&A, big share sales, sector-specific demand for AI, are likely to steer near-term performance. That means more headline-driven intraday moves rather than broad, conviction-led advances.
Let's shift to policy. There wasn't a blockbuster economic print today, but how were Fed expectations showing up in market behavior?
Markets continued to price a Fed that is data-dependent and patient. Inflation has been gradually improving, so the consensus remained that the Fed was likely to stay on hold unless inflation re-accelerated meaningfully or growth collapsed. Three practical implications emerged. Stronger growth would likely help cyclicals and small caps. A rise in inflation would hurt rate-sensitive sectors like REITs and utilities, and banking stress test or capital signals could affect credit conditions.
So basically, no big policy surprise, but policy risk remains a backdrop.
Exactly. And that background helps explain why company news and sector narratives carried more weight during the session.
Let's do a short checklist of notable individual stock dynamics for listeners who like specifics. Micron, crypto names, those big sales, and anything else?
Micron repeatedly showed up as a beneficiary of AI demand and helped underpin the chip rally. Crypto-exposed names, exchanges and miners, took pressure after Bitcoin declined. The large share sale reports tied to big holders created headline risk for several names. And real estate deal announcements provided a bid for certain REITs. Technically, major indices were oscillating in a broad range, but with an upward bias concentrated in mega-cap tech. If the Nasdaq cleared short-term resistance and breadth improved, that would be constructive for momentum traders. If not, the market could revert back toward the mean.
So traders were watching breadth and volume to see whether the strength was real.
Right. Volatility ticked up intraday as headlines around crypto and large sales prompted knee-jerk reactions. Seasonally, mid-year sessions often amplify moves due to earnings-driven rotations and portfolio rebalancing. So today's pattern fit that historical tendency.
Quick reaction. Got it.
For the next session, the things to watch were clear. Whether crypto stabilized or declined further. Any follow-on developments from reported large share sales or activist activity. Upcoming economic prints and Fed speaker schedules. And sector-specific catalysts like AI CapEx commentary or real estate financing updates.
And tactically, what would you say to listeners about positioning? Not advice, just framing.
Analysts were framing the market as headline-driven near-term. That suggested shorter-term trades and active monitoring of breadth and volume were likely to matter more than assuming a steady, broad rally. Again, this is informational context, not personalized advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
In short, tech and AI names led. Small caps showed some life, but concentrated leadership. Crypto volatility and large share sales left the market in a watchful stance heading into the next session.
Final quick takeaways for listeners. Hit me with 3 bullets.
1. The Nasdaq outperformed thanks to AI and semiconductor momentum, but that outperformance was concentrated. 2. Small caps participated, which was encouraging, yet breadth still needed to improve for the rally to feel broad-based. 3. Headline risks, crypto moves, and large share sales created pockets of volatility that could persist into the next day.
Perfect summary. Honestly, I was a bit surprised by how much those big share sale headlines carried weight today.
Yeah, big concentrated flows tend to do that. They can matter, even if the underlying business hasn't changed.
All right, that's our recap. If you have questions about anything we covered today, head to stockalpha.ai, where you can ask us directly and we'll answer live. For more market analysis and insights, visit stockalpha.ai. Thanks for listening to Alpha Recap. We'll be back after the next close with more market color.
Thanks. Talk soon.